So for the AKS, as you know, the best AKS is the AKS 74UB. So I'm going to give this a solid A. The reason I'm giving it an A is because it's cheap to build, pretty good ammo, and, you know, recoil-wise, it's really good. So I feel like a combination of all of that makes it a really good gun. I personally really like it. It's one of my go-to guns whenever I'm looking for something to build. Next, we have the AS Val and the VSS. I'm just going to combine those two as well. I know they're like kind of different, but they're similar enough. I'm actually going to rank both of those. I'm going to rank the AS Val as an S. I was debating A because it shoots really fast, so you do tend to burn through ammo. But I think it's just so good that it can't go in A, especially with the new recoil. Old recoil, yeah, I could have put it A, maybe even B, because it was just like really bad to use. But with new recoil, definitely an S. The Ash 12, I'm honestly going to give the Ash 12 a B. I give it a B because there's only one really like viable ammo once you get late in the wipe, or PS12B. And I feel like with there only being one good ammo, that kind of makes the gun, you know, like, sure, you can use the other types, and I'm sure they're not bad. But if you really want to make sure that you kill people that have, like, any decent armor, you know, you have to be using PS12B. And then on top of that, it's really heavy. Like, you'll be going into raid. If you bring the Ash 12 and, like, maybe 2 or 3 mags, you'll be walking in, like, if that's all you bring, you'll be, like, high 20s in terms of weight. So I feel like that's what makes it a B for me. I do like the gun, but I do think it's B tier. Next, we have the Mutant. Just gonna rank that S tier. Pretty straightforward, really good. Been meta for the last couple wipes. Really strong, really good in PvP. Next, we have the M4. I'm gonna give the M4 an S as well. We have a lot of S's. I think just overall, there's, at least compared to the HK, there's a lot more variation you can do with it, and it tends to be better. Like, it's a more well-rounded gun. You know, you can do ergo builds, you can do recoil builds, you can do one that's, you know, good recoil, good ergo. So I feel like it's got, you know, a good overall way to build the gun. For the SA-58, I'm going to put it A tier. And while it is good and it shreds people, I'm putting it A tier purely because the ergo isn't very good on it for the most part. You can do ergo builds that make it more viable. If you want a decent gun build, you kind of have to suffer on the ergo. And me personally, I really like having a decently high ergo on my guns. So that's why I'm putting it A tier. Next up, we have the 5.56 MDR. I'm going to put that B tier. It is good. It's really cheap to run, which is, you know, also an upside. You just kind of throw, you know, any suppressor you want on there, sight and a grip, and you're good to go. Only downside to that is it's really slow fire rate compared to the two other, like, mainstream 5.56 guns that you're going to see in raid. So that's what makes it a B tier for me. I actually really like running this gun as well if I'm looking for, like, a budget 5.56. The 7.62 MDR, I'm actually going to put this in S tier, because especially now, since there's new mags out for it, that you can have the 25 rounders, I think it's a lot more viable to use. I think the 25 rounders make it a lot better, and there's also just not a whole lot customization that you have to do to it. You know, you just throw a sight on there, a suppressor, a grip, flashlight, you're good to go. And of course, it shoots 7.62 by 51, so that makes it a really strong gun. Now, the 5.56 Scar. Where do I want to put the 5.56 Scar? I think I'm going to put a B tier, but I'm going to put it in front of both of these guns. It's not too heavy. It's 5.56. I'm pretty sure it shoots faster than the MDR, and it has a little bit more customization to it. This is kind of just a preference thing. I like the Scar better than the 5.56 MDR, so that's why I'm putting it ahead of the 5.56 MDR. Really easy to customize. The only thing that's making it A tier is I feel like ergo on it's really hurting a lot. Most builds you do, you tend to have really low ergo, and then it's also really expensive. The gun itself is like $1,700, which is kind of expensive. Next, we have the HK. I'm going to put the HK, hot take maybe, I'm putting it A tier. And as I said earlier, for the M4, what the HK suffers from the most, well, yes, it's really good, it has a really fast fire rate, shred through people, it suffers from ergo, and I'm a big ergo guy on my builds, so that's why I usually tend to stay away from the HK. I do still use it, and I do still like it, but that's why I'm putting it below the M4 and A tier, just because of the ergo. Next, we have the G36. I'm going to put C tier. I don't think it's that great. I think if you're going to use a 5.56 gun, you can use any of these other ones up above it, the Scar, MDR, HK, M4. I think you're better off using any of those. The only reason I think you'd want to use the G36 is just because, like, why not? It's in the game. I want to try something different. I'm going to use it. Next, we have the AK-101. Now, I actually really like the AK-101. I would say the biggest downside to running the AK-101 is that you only have the 30-round mags, and that's what is keeping it far down on the list for me. So I'm actually going to put this at a B tier above the Ash 12. I'm actually going to put this above the Scar. Really hot take, probably. I really like the AK-101. Again, it's just those 30-round mags, man. Those 60-rounders, when you're using them, they come in really handy. Next, we have the AK-12. Another 5.45 by 39 gun. I'm gonna put this in A tier. I'll fix this list at the end. Next, we have all the AKs. This is just the AK-74, but this goes for all the AK-74 variants. I'm gonna put this in A tier as well. I feel like for the most part, it usually gets dominated by 5.56, but especially this wipe, I feel like it's way better. So that's why I'm putting it in A tier. I don't think it's better than like an M4, so that's why it's not going in S tier, but I do think it's still solid. Next, we have an AKM. Honestly, I'm going to put the AKM in B tier. And the reason for that, for how much modding you kind of have to do to make it somewhat decent, I feel like you're better off just running like a mutant or an RD at that point. Next, we have the RD. This is an automatic S tier. Been one of the meta guns for the last few pretty much since it's been added. It's been one of the meta guns in the game. So that's pretty self-explanatory. If something's meta, clearly, you know, it's really good. So that's why it's going S tier. Next, we have the MCX. Really like using the MCX. I haven't used it this wipe. I've heard it's a lot better. I'm thinking B or C. I'm going to run it B tier. All right, so next we have the Spear, and this is where the haven't used column comes into play. I haven't actually used this. I assume it's pretty good. From what I've seen, everybody really likes it. I've just personally never used it yet, so don't really have an opinion on it. Can't give an opinion on it. Lastly, we have the AUG. I'm going to put this in the same tier as the G36. I'll be real. I actually really don't even like the AUG. I think it's worse than G36 and the same as the G36. If you're going to run the AUG, I think you're better off using any of the other 5.56 guns. All right, now that we got our list made, I'm going to take the time and actually organize them in what I think is best to worst in each row. So now this is my final list. As you can see, I put the M4 as the top S tier. I think the M4 is probably just the best well-rounded gun in the game at the moment, and it has been for a while. You know, that could change, but at the moment, I do think it is the best in the game. But starting off, we're gonna be starting with the SR25, and we're gonna start off strong. We're gonna go S tier. I think the SR25 is probably just the best DMR in the game. So that's why it is going S tier. Next, we have the RSAS. I'm going to put the RSAS in A tier. I do think the RSAS is really good. The only reason I'm going to put it in A tier is because it is way more expensive to mod out compared to a SR25. And when it comes to building guns, I do like, as much as I like building the best looking and best usable weapon, you know, cost does come into play. So I like to keep my costs at a minimum if possible, and that's why RSAS is going below SR25. Next, we have the SVD. I'm going to put the SVD in S tier. Actually, scratch that. I'm going to put the SVD in A tier for a couple reasons. One of them being it is very expensive to mod out. The gun itself is like 90K, I believe, just for the gun. If you want to make the gun usable, because the gun suffers a lot from ergo. You don't really have a lot of ergo when you're building an SVD, I feel like. So if you want to build a good SVD, you do have to spend a lot of money for it, and that's why it is going A tier. Other than that, I do think it is really good. I actually do quite like using the SVD. Next up, we have the M1A. I'm going to put the M1A in S tier. You don't have to do too much modding to the M1A, and it uses 7.62 by 51, so I just think it is very solid. I don't think it's better than the SR25, but I do think it is S tier and very good. Next up, we have the SVT. It's very cheap to use. All you have to do is buy the gun, and then you just have to get, I mean, the 10 rounders are fine. The 15 rounders are obviously better. And then you just need the PU scope, which is detachable very easily while you're in raid. So you can go iron sights for close quarters, and then the PU scope for long range if you need it. But it is definitely the best all-around gun. So that is why it is going S tier. Next up, we got the SKS. I'm going to put the SKS in B tier. I do think the SKS is solid. It's pretty cheap to run for the most part. I think if you're going to use a semi-auto gun, I think there are better options. And as you can see based off the list, I don't think it's bad though. I just think there are better options, which is why it is going in B tier. Now we have the 5.45 semi-automatic AK. I'm actually going to put this in B tier as well. It shoots 5.45 by 39. So, you know, you can run BT, BS, 7 and 39, whatever you might want to run. And it's fairly cheap to mod. You just kind of buy the gun. When it comes to power and killing people, I think the SVD, SR25, SVT, RSAS, you know, all those, I think they're just stronger, which is why this is going in B tier. Next up, we have the 366 semi-auto rifle, and this is also going to be a combination. There's a 7.62x39 semi-auto rifle. I'm just going to combine the both of them. Technically different guns, but just to make that clear. This is actually going to go D tier. And I say this specifically for the 366 rifle. I haven't actually used the 7.62x39 one like anytime recently. The only time I use it is when I'm on a scav. Very expensive to mod out, and the only usable ammo really is 366 AP once you get, later in the wipe. And then once you do, even if you do mod the gun out, you have the ammo. The gun suffers a lot from fire rate issue. It has a capped fire rate, so it doesn't actually fire as fast as you can click, unfortunately. So that's why it's going D tier. That will get you killed a lot of the time. The fire rate, well, at least. Next up, we have the Vepr Hunter. The Vepr Hunter is going to go in A tier. It's very cheap. Runs 7.62x51. Not a whole lot of modding that you have to do to it. I don't think it's better than the SVD or the RSAS, though. So that is why it is going to go in A tier. Now, the TX15. I'm going to put the TX15 in B tier above both the SKS and the 545 AK. I actually am a huge fan of the TX15. It's kind of expensive. I think the gun itself is like 100K or something like that. And it's a 5.56. I'm a sucker for 5.56 guns. I really like running 5.56. But I don't think it's better than any of the options in S and A. So that's why it is going to go in B tier. And our second to last gun we have here is the RFB, the RFB, or what it really stands for, really fucking bad. It is gonna go in C tier. I'm personally not a big fan of the RFB. It has really bad ergo. It shoots 7.62x51. It is actually pretty good. I'm a big ergo guy on my guns. When you're building a gun, if you can't get a lot of ergo, that's gonna kind of kill it for me. Or not even a lot. If you can't get like a decent amount of ergo on your gun, that's gonna kill it for me. And I've also just never been that big of a fan of this gun because you never tend to get it back in insurance, because once you take the mag out of it, it makes it one slot tall once you take the mag out of it. So a lot of people tend to take it if you die. Even if they have a gun on their back, people tend to take it because they can just throw it in their backpack if they take the mag out. So you never actually get it back in insurance, and that is why it is going in C tier. And last but not least, we have the ADAR. And hot take, I'm gonna put the ADAR in D tier. While I do think it's better than the 366 rifle. I don't think it's very good because it also has an issue with the capped fire rate. And then there's not too much modding that you can do with the ADAR, because I don't see a point to mod out an ADAR, because if you're gonna mod out an ADAR, you might as well just go and use an M4 or even a TX15. And I just really don't like the gun in general, so that's why I'm gonna put it in D tier. I'm gonna put the MP9 in A tier. It shoots 9x19, has a really fast fire rate, and it's really, really easy to control recoil wise. So I feel like that just in general makes this a very, very solid SMG. So that's why I'm going to put it in A tier. Next, we have the P90. I'm going to put the P90 up in S tier. There's a lot of customization you can do to it. It shoots 5.7 ammo or SS190s, SS193, ammo like that. Makes it very strong and effective. The only downside to the P90 is when you're packing mags mid-raid, is very slow, but I do still think the P90 is a very strong and effective SMG. Next, we have the MP5. I think the MP5 is solid. I don't think it's better than the MP9 or another SMG that will come later in the list. So that's why it's going to go B tier. I don't think it's bad. There's other ones that I think are better, including the MP9. So that's why it's going to stay in a B tier. There is some solid customization you can do to it. Next, we have the MP7. I'm going to put the MP7 in S tier. I think it is by far probably the best SMG in the game. It's really strong. There's not a whole lot of customization you have to do to it. Kind of depends on which one you buy. One of them comes with the foregrip, one of them does not. But all you really have to do, suppressor, grip, sight, and then you buy the 40 round mags, 30 rounders if you can't buy the 40 rounders, and then you're good to go. Like, it's really strong, really good, shoots really fast. It's just, in my opinion, the best SMG in the game. Next, we got the UMP45. I think it is really solid, especially if you have the 45 ACP AP. The only thing is you don't get the AP ammo from traders, and it also doesn't have too fast of a fire rate, but it is really cheap. And early wipe, I would say the UMP is really, really effective using the FMJ ammo. So I'm going to put it in B tier above the MP5 because it is very, very cost efficient. Next, we have, I believe this is the PP19. I'm going to put this in B tier above the UMP. Shoots 9x19 and is very, very cost efficient again. Same as the UMP. I think there is just one SMG. I think there's actually two SMGs that shoot 9x19 that's better, and it doesn't really make sense to put it in the same, like, A or S tier. So I feel like B is solid for it. Next up, we have the PP Keter. I'm gonna put this C tier. I actually kind of like it. The only downside is that it shoots really bad ammo. So The only viable thing to do with it is leg meta people. So that's why it's going C tier. It doesn't really have the ammo to be able to shoot people's armor, but it is still solid if you do choose to leg meta people. Now the PPSH, I actually like the PPSH. It's kind of a meme gun to run, especially if you're running the drum mags. I think it is fun to run sometimes though. Unfortunately, I am gonna have to do it dirty. I'm gonna put a C tier. I was thinking D tier. I'm gonna put a C tier. It's solid. You end up having to leg meta people, but that's all right. It's, you know, the fire rate makes up for it, and the mag size, if you're running the drum mags, makes up for that as well. Next up, we have the MPX. I'm gonna put this in A tier. I actually really like it. I'm kind of debating. I'm gonna put it behind the MP9 only because the MP9 is way more cost efficient than the MPX. I think the MPX is still very solid though, and there's a lot more customization you can do to it. So it's gonna go A tier. I think A tier is solid. Next, we have the, I actually don't know what it's called, but it's the 9x21 SMG. I haven't actually used this all that much myself. The little bit that I have used it, it is pretty solid. I'm gonna put it A tier. I don't have too strong of a opinion about it. I do think it's solid. I'd have to use it more, but I do think it's solid from the little bit that I have used it. So the Sega 9 is just the semi-auto PP19. I'm gonna put D tier. Any semi-auto SMG I think is just automatically really bad, so that's why it's gonna go D tier. Next we have the STM9. Same thing as the Sega 9 semi-auto. I think you're better off using any of the full auto 9x19 SMGs. Like if you're trying to run like a quote-unquote meta gun, these are not the guns you're looking for. Next we have the 9mm Vector. I'm going to put this in S tier. Now that might be a hot take, but it has a really fast fire rate. It has the 50 round mags, a lot of customization to it. It is probably one of my favorite SMGs to run. I don't think it's better than the MP7 or the P90, but I do think it is S tier. And last but not least, the 45 Vector. I think it is better than if you're running the AP rounds, I think it's better than the 9x19 Vector. No, maybe a little bit of a hot take. The only downside to it is that you have it's like the 45 rounds or the 43 round mags, whatever it is. That's the only downside to the 45 Vector. You don't get the 50 rounders that the 9x19 has. We've got our bolt action tier list. What are we starting with? We're starting with a DVL. DVL, out of all the bolt actions, there's probably two that I'm gonna rank S tier, and I think the DVL is one of them. I think the best bang for your buck, it's the most effective, and it's just a personal favorite, apart from another sniper that I'll run. But so DVL going S tier. There's not a whole lot of customization that you have to do. You can like change the barrel to be like a suppressor in it of itself. That's kind of cool. When it comes to running bolt actions, it's all just kind of preference for the most part. They're like all the bolt actions are solid as long as you're using the right ammo. Next we got the 366 VPO. I'm gonna rank a B tier, and only reason for that is because the only good ammo is 366 AP. If you don't have any other ammo, pretty self-explanatory. Like the gun itself isn't bad, modding is pretty easy, but the ammo is what's holding it back. Next we have the Mosin, and this just goes for all Mosins. I'm gonna rank it A tier. Maybe a hot take. It's really effective and really cheap. It would be S tier if it was the old Mosin, where you could one-shot people to the chest with like level 5 and below, but you can't one-shot anymore, so that's why it's going down in A tier, because it's cheap and effective, but it can't one-shot, so it's A tier instead of S tier. Next we have the T5000. I'm gonna rate it C tier. I'm gonna be real, I don't see a point to use the sniper when there's both the M700 and the DVL. I mean, unless you want to, of course, you know, use whatever gun you want. That's just my opinion. Like, why use this over either of those two bolt actions? So that's why it's going C tier. I don't think it's M700 and insta S tier for me. It's same as DVL. It's just I like the DVL a little bit more than the M700. The M700 does have more customization to it, which is nice, but I think the ease when it comes to modding the DVL is what gives it superiority over the M700. Brother, the Gornasty is awesome. The Gornasty or the Gornasty? The Gornasty Supreme from Scavs. What is that? The single shot? Got a scope and a suppressor. Oh, dude, that's the one sniper I miss. I'm missing a sniper. I forgot. Oh my god, you just reminded me. Actually, let me switch to this. To hide/remove images from the template, drag that. Can I not add? Can you not add new images? Oh no. Okay, it works. All right, so this is gonna be kind of scuffed because I can't take a screenshot of it. Next we have the SV98. I'm gonna give it a B tier. Do I want to give it B or A tier? I do think it's better than this sniper. I think we're gonna stick with B tier. It's kind of expensive to mod out unless you just run it default with just a scope and a suppressor. But I like making my guns look cool. And if you want to make the SV98 look cool, it kind of costs a lot. So that's why it's going B tier. And I also just like, why not use a Mosin? I guess you can't exactly get the same like scopes on a Mosin unless you use like mounts and stuff like that. But I don't know. I'm always choosing a Mosin over an SV98 personally. Next, we have the single shot rifle. And I know this isn't a bolt action. It's a single shot rifle, but I didn't really know what tier list to put this in. So it's going in the bolt action tier list, and it's going in D tier. Sure, this is solid, but it's single shot. So, and there's not a whole lot of modding you can do to it. You can only put a scope on it. It's kind of boring. Just because you hate the quest, the where you have to stash the SV98 and on a shoreline, or the customs one, because you have to stash one on customs too. All right, and then last but not least, we have the ACMX. I think this is a pretty obvious choice. It's gonna go D tier. No, I'm kidding. It's gonna go S tier. It's very, very solid. Can one shot level AP can one shot. I believe level 5 it has a chance to one shot, and then level 4 and below. No, it's just really expensive. But I think the trade-off is that it's really good. Like, I know I was making the point for all these other ones that they were really expensive and putting them lower. The difference is they don't have the same power as the ACMX. So that's why the ACMX is going S. First one we'll be starting off with is the Super 90. I feel like the Super 90 is pretty solid. The only thing that I don't like about the Super 90 is that you can't put a flashlight on it. And honestly, for that, I'm going to rank it A tier. But moving on to the MP133, I am going to put this one in C tier. I don't really have too good of a reason for this. The only reason I have for this is just that it's a pump shotgun, as I was saying 2 seconds ago. I don't think pump shotguns are too great, considering if you want to use a shotgun, you might as well just use a semi-auto one. Next, we have the MP153. I'm going to put it in B tier. I feel like it's solid. It's very cheap when you want to mod it out. I do think there are better ones, though. So if you're just looking for a cheap, good shotgun to run, the MP153 is your shotgun to go to. Next, we have the MP155. I'm going to rank it S tier. It is by far my favorite shotgun to run, and I think it's just the best out of all the semi-auto shotguns. And then when it goes to modding them, you can also add like that. You can add that thermal camera attachment, and you know, you can just make your shotgun looking really cool, and it's actually not too expensive. Next, we have the sawed-off double barrel shotgun. Now, I actually really like this shotgun, not for killing players, but I like it for specifically questing, because if you have a quest where you need to kill scavs with a 12 gauge shotgun, what you can do is you can run any sort of normal weapon as your primary, and then you can just stick this on your hip and then pull it out whenever you need to kill a scav. For that reason, and maybe a crazy take, I'm going to put this B tier. Next, we have the double barrel shotgun. I'm also going to put the double barrel shotgun in B tier. I feel like it's as good as the sawed off, if not better. I don't personally run it, because if I'm going to run a shotgun, I'm going to run a semi-auto one. But I do think it's better than the pump shotguns, because you can also do the little double shot thing, the double shot mode where you shoot both rounds at once, which is really good. But I do not think it's better than the MP153 or the sawed off. So that's why it is going in B tier, but below both of them. Next, we have the, I don't even know what shotgun this is called, but it's like the lever action weird shotgun. This is basically the same as a pump, so I'm going to put this in C tier. I think it's, despite not knowing the name, I have used this shotgun quite a bit whenever I get it off of, you know, my scav, or if I just like feel like memeing around. I do think it's better than the MP133. Maybe a hot and crazy take, but I'm going to put it above the MP133 in C tier. Next, we have the Mossberg 590. This is going to go C tier, but above all of them. I think it is the best pump shotty in the game, so that's why it's going right there in C tier. All right, next we have the M870. I'm going to rank this C tier, but the lowest in C tier. I've used this maybe like, you count on one hand how many times I've used it. I don't see a point to use it, because even if you do want to use a pump action shotgun, I feel like there's a lot of other shotguns that you could use over it. So that's why I do think it's better than what I'm going to put in D tier, but I don't think it's any better than that. So that's why it is going at the bottom of C tier. Next, we have the Saiga 12. The Saiga 12 is S tier. There's a lot of customization to it, and it's semi-auto. You can use drum mags. You know, there's a lot you can do with this shotgun. I do think it's really good. I don't think it's the best. As I've said, I think the MP155 is the best in terms of cost and effectiveness, but the Saiga 12 is definitely a close second, and it is really good. And last but not least, we have the Taz, and I made this tier just for the Taz. It is going in D tier. It's a bolt action, pump action, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't have good ammo. It's just really, really bad. The only useful thing about the Taz is the quest that you get on like level, I don't even know, but it's like the second quest. It's like the first or second quest that you get from Skier. And that's the only reason the Taz is even useful, because you need them for that quest. First pistol we have is the toy pistol, and is very recently added. If you haven't used it, you're missing out. This is a pretty clear S tier. Next up, we have the, I believe it's called the APS. or ABS, one of the two. It's the full auto 9x18 pistol. I'm gonna give this pistol a C tier, and that might be a hot take, but it's got 20 round mags and the ammo for it isn't very good, so that's why I'm giving it C tier. Next up we have the M9. I'm gonna give the M9 a B tier because it does have decent ammo, but I personally don't really like the pistol itself. I think it's kind of bad, iron sights and everything, so that's why it's gonna go B tier. The only thing that's making it B tier again is the ammo, otherwise I'd probably put it C tier. Next we have the pocket rocket. Now the pocket rocket is the one slot 9x19 revolver. It's not very good. You know, it's a cool little meme gun because you can literally just put it in your pockets. But it's not very good. Doesn't have very good range. I'm going to give it F tier. Only thing that makes it somewhat decent is that you can run like 9x19 AP or PBP, but the gun itself is really bad. Next, we have the 357 revolver, and I'm going to put this at F tier. And could be a hot take, but I've never actually seen anybody use this gun, and I've never actually used it myself. And now I say that, I have seen people have it on them, like after they've brought it in. Maybe like, you count on maybe like one hand how many times I've seen it. And I feel like that in itself kind of says how bad the pistol is. Because if it was somewhat decent, you would see people running it, but you don't ever see people running this pistol. So I will, actually, I was going to put it above the pocket rocket, but the pocket rocket's kind of a meme. I'm going to keep it behind the pocket rocket. Next, we have the 1911. 1911 is going to go B tier above the M9. The reason it's going here is because it's pretty solid. It can run 45 ACP AP, and then I believe it has like, what, 14 round mags. But I am going to leave it in B tier because I do think there is better than the M1911. Next, we have the 5.7. 5.7 is going to go S tier. You know, it shoots SS190s. It's really good for if you're ever doing a pistol run. This is what I recommend running. It is kind of expensive for a pistol, but it's, you know, it's effective and cheap. It's expensive for a pistol, but it's cheap because it's a pistol, if that makes sense. Since it can shoot SS190s, is really good against like level 4, even level 5 armor, I believe. So that's why I'm going to put this in S tier. Next, we have the Glock, and this is going to go for all Glocks. I'm going to put the Glock in A tier. With the recent update to pistols, the full auto Glock is a little bit more viable to run. And, you know, if you have a full 50 rounders of AP 6.3 or PvPs and a Glock, you're just going to shred someone. So that's why it's going to go A tier. We got the USP, and I'm going to put the USP in A tier behind the Glock because I think it's better than I think it's just a better 1911. More customization, larger mag size. So I think it's just better than 1911. Next up, we have the PL15. I'm going to put this at the top of B tier because it is a solid pistol. There's a lot of customization that you can do to it, which makes it pretty solid. Shoots by 9x19, so you can, that's a pretty decent ammo. I just don't think it's at the same tier as the USP or the Glock, so that's why it's going to go B tier, but at the top of it. Next, we have the Makarov. I'm going to put the Makarov at the top of F tier. The only thing the Makarov's useful for is the Punisher quest where you have to give them in for, you know, the quest. Other than that, you're better off using the full auto APS or whatever this is called. I forget what it's called. It's A something. You're better off using this because bigger mag size, unless you run the drum mag for the Makarov. Why would you run in the drum mag? So I don't know. It's just F tier. Next, we have the PB. The silenced PB or whatever is basically just a Makarov but suppressed. I'm going to put it C tier right below the full auto pistol here. The reason it's going C tier and not F tier is because it has the suppressor. That's legit the only defining factor. It's just the suppressor. Now we have the RSH. This is the revolver that shoots the rounds, or the same rounds as the Ash 12. This is going to go S tier, and I'm actually going to put it up above the 5.7. I think it is the best pistol in the game by far, and for good reason. You can put a voodoo on it, you know, scopes like that, makes it kind of fun to run, and then it shoots Ash 12 ammo, so it's very, very strong. It's just a revolver, so when you go to reload, it is kind of slow at reloading, but I think the power makes up for that. So that's why it is going at the top of S tier. Next up, we have the P226. I'm going to put the P226 in B tier, right below the PL15. I think they're basically the same pistol. Like, they shoot the same rounds. They have the same amount of customization. So they're just going to go right next to each other. I would say they're like equally as good as each other. One is not like better than the other one. Next up, we have the Shrimp. This is actually going to go maybe a hot take. I'm going to put it above the, no, I'll put it at the bottom of A tier. Yeah, I'll put it at the bottom of A tier. It can shoot 9x21 PS. I believe that's the strongest round for it, which makes it a pretty decent pistol. I don't think that round is better than the 9x19 or the 45 ACP equivalent, so that's why it is going to rank below both the Glock and the USP. But it is still a solid pistol. There is a decent amount of customization to it, and it's just, you know, it's still a solid pistol to run, so might as well put it A tier. Next, we have the TT. This is pretty obvious. Going F tier. Reason it's going F tier, you do see people running this, surprisingly. but it's not good. Yeah, I don't really know why you see people running this. The only reason it's at the top of F tier is because, again, you see people running it. You don't really see people running these pistols, so it doesn't really make sense for it to be behind these ones. And last but not least, we have the Garage. And the Garage I actually like. It's pretty basic. You just kind of, but it is a good pistol, and it shoots 9x19 again, so it is very cost effective because you don't have to do any modding to it. I mean, you don't have to do any modding to any of the pistols, but it is, some of them, it is nice. I will put this above the M9 though. I like it more than the M9, so that's why it is going in B tier.